Did you just go 3-6 Mafia on me? Did you just like pop your collar? Like ever since I can remember, I've been popping my collar.
Had to do what I had to do. How are you? How are you, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. So, Zach, I don't think we have a lot of time to waste because I got a lot of questions I want to ask your thoughts on. Around 10:30, 10:45, even a little bit earlier than that. Let's go a little bit earlier. Around 9 o'clock, the players, there were some things leaking out that the players have been told that Matt House was not going to be retained. Neither was Robert Steeples nor Kerry Cooks. Let's start with Matt House. Your thoughts on Brian Kelly making the move and getting rid of Matt House?
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, this is something that you and I have talked about on several occasions, and it was just time. If you bring him back, you're ultimately entering, a do or die type of year where you could potentially lose the fan base, and obviously that's not something that you want to do. So it's obviously Brian Kelly's call. He knows more than us, and you and I have said that on several occasions. Whatever he does, he knows more than us. He's going to do what he needs to do. But look, ultimately he made the decision, and I think it was the best for the team. Sure, there were some personnel problems this year. Maybe you didn't have the talent to compete in the SEC, but at the end of the day, there were schematic issues as well. There were a lot of head scratching decisions by Matt House, and you can blame other position coaches all you want, but Matt House is the one who oversees it all. And here we are, and he's gone, and they parted ways, and now it's time for a new era for this LSU defense. And if you're asking me my opinion, I think it was for the best.
I do agree that it was for the best. They did not make the decision based off of this. At least I was told that they were not making the decision based off of this today. But I want to get your thought. Yesterday, it was the cherry on top for me when that video got leaked. Not really leaked because I think Jock just did his job and it just, made the rounds and made the circles. Was that the tip of the iceberg on the Matt House movement? I mean, you don't get $5.4 million in buyout money ready if you're not ready to fire somebody. I'm not going there. I mean, come on, let's use brains here. But that's got to just be from a fan perspective, the cherry on top that, like, hey, man, this is it. Matt House has to go.
Look, Jacques was obviously doing his job, so obviously no blame on Jacques. But yeah, I mean that's something that certainly took social media by storm. Once you see a video like that of your team captain, Mekhi Wingo, who is one of my favorite people I've had the chance to talk to.
Always great, Zach. Yeah. When we talk to him, he's always fantastic.
Respectful, humble guy, and for him to have maybe a little bit of ill will towards Matt House. Not saying he does, not saying he doesn't, but for him to have some type of attitude in the moment certainly is something to take note of. Do I think that was the tip of the iceberg? I have mixed emotions on that. I'd like to say yes. I'd like to say no, just because his buyout's so significant. You're not going to make a massive play like that strictly based off of a social media clip. But certainly there were private conversations between the players at the end of the day, and there probably would have been a lot of other portal entries potentially if you were to keep Matt House around. So here we are. Obviously, that's a sticky situation, and Mekhi Wingo's now off to the league to go do his thing. But yeah, I think there was definitely some feelings towards that video that was leaked on social media.
Well, I don't even think that it's just Mekhi Wingo. You got Braden Swinson out there putting a thing like kick rocks to him.
That was crazy.
Well, it is crazy, but it's not the worst thing. Look, Harold Perkins does not speak. Like, he talks to the players. He's different around players. He does not speak. Zach, you go to every practice, you go to every opportunity there is for LSU. How many times have you spoke to Harold Perkins that LSU's made him available?
There's one time, it was at an away game actually, so there was only a select few media members there. So
the
no
game, wasn't it? It was the one where he had the interception and kind of clinched it for LSU there, correct?
Correct. And so to answer your question, never. You never get to talk to Harold Perkins. And to be honest, when he's posting on social media, like on Instagram or something like that, it's NIL deals. It's really just like, stuff to, get his name out there, get exposure and, make some cash. So yeah, he's not an outspoken guy. So when I saw him put something out like that, that was certainly when I kind of sat back, kind of scratched my head and said,
oh shit.
Here we go. Maybe there is some things going on behind the scenes in that locker room that we don't know about. And does it surround Matt House? Obviously, all signs would point in that direction. So, yeah, definitely to what you're saying, there's some truth to that.
But he said the same exact thing Sage Ryan said. It ain't funny when the rabbit got the gun, right?
Didn't Sage Ryan say that like a month and a half ago? Like, I think I saw that a while back.
Yes, when I saw you 2 weeks ago at practice, it was the talking point of everybody in the media. Everybody, oh, there's Sage Ryan. I mean, he said the rabbit's got the gun. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, but it's a big deal. Glad that they moved on.
Yeah.
Surprise, Zach. I said this earlier. I think it was like my number one talking point. I want your thought on this.
Okay.
Scott Woodward paid $17 million to fire Ed Orgeron. He paid probably roughly, if not more, than $20 million in a buyout to get Brian Kelly out of Notre Dame. Okay. He then gives him a $100 million contract. We saw what he did with Kim Mulkey. We saw what he did with Jay Johnson. Why are we so surprised that he spent $5.4 million to fire this staff? Like, why am I just crazy and like have my purple and gold glasses on and said to myself, like, oh, well, you know what, man? Like, you know, this is LSU and obviously we'll do it. I mean, am I crazy? He's spending money. Like, what? This shouldn't be a big talking point, should it?
Obviously, like, my immediately thought process after that would be, you know, scared money don't make money is the type of deal.
Go Billy Napier, LSU.
I had to do what I had to do. But look, at the end of the day, there's some truth to that statement. You know, Scott Woodward's not scared of shit. He's not scared to spend money. And if that is spending that money and cutting that check is what's going to be best for the LSU athletics department, he's going to do that. And he's proven that on a day-by-day basis. And here we are, you know, cutting a $5.4 million rough check to get rid of that staff. And it was a move that needed to be made. And here we are. So, look, no, I'm not surprised. I understand others might have some feelings towards that. But for me, sounds like you and I are on the exact same page where I'm sitting here. I'm like, hell, do what you got to do. Cut the check, get them out of here, and let's revamp that defensive staff.
Thoughts on Robert Steeples and Kerry Cooks also being let go?
I wouldn't say, you know, there's some recruiting pieces that you could miss potentially. Obviously, the talk of the town is going to be, you know, do you bring back Corey Raymond? What do you do there? And I'm sure we could get to that in a second. But there's going to be some recruiting pieces that you might miss in the state of Texas. But at the end of the day, you know, Brian Kelly's going to go out and get a home run hire, we can hope, and he'll hit the recruiting trail with force and do what he needs to do. He's dipped into the state of Texas, and at the end of the day, you're going to have a staff that can go in there and do what they need to do. Am I surprised? No, I'm not surprised. You had quarterbacks completely annihilate this defense on a routine basis, and it obviously started with the secondary. Is it a coaching issue? Is it a player development issue? Was it a personnel issue? You know, we can't sit back and speculate that on a day-by-day basis, but yeah, I think it was certainly time to get rid of that staff and you know, start from scratch.
About an hour ago, it was reported that Blake Baker has emerged as the leading candidate for LSU's next defensive coordinator job. I'm going to give you open floor on this. What are your thoughts? Well, let me ask you this. Are you hearing some of the same stuff? If, you know, and look, I'll give you the floor on that. Are you hearing a lot of the same stuff? What do you think if Blake Baker were to be the DC at LSU?
To start off with that, yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that statement for sure, but leading candidate to me isn't necessarily a concrete thing where people need to sit back and think like, okay, this is the guy, it's a done deal, let's rock. In my opinion, it's too early in the process to have that. Certainly when Brian Kelly made the firing of, you know, Matt House, there was obviously going to be somebody in line to, you know, keep the recruiting class intact, keep your signees intact, keep your players intact. So certainly there are some leading candidates here, and the Blake Baker one got leaked. And it, to me, fast forward into your second question, man, how could you not, you know, be a little bit intrigued with a hire like that? There's Louisiana ties there. He's been around the block. He's done what he's handled business, and he's a guy who has ties to LSU, Louisiana, Tulane, all around here. And like you said a couple minutes ago before I joined, you know, his wife's from Louisiana, and if we've learned anything about chicks, you know, they rule the world. So if he wants to come back here, and his wife wants to come back here, he's going to be back here. So he's done a phenomenal job at Missouri, and now, you know, if that's the hire that they make, it's a hire that I would sit back and, you know, say, hell yeah, you know, you're getting a goddamn good coach. So I would be, you know, extremely pleased if that's the direction that they went in. But we'll see how quickly they move on that.
Hypothetically, if it's not Blake Baker, is there anybody else out there that you would like?
You know, Lance Guidry's a name that certainly is one of intrigue to me. There's a lot of guys. Do you go in-house? I don't know. I think if you were going in-house, you would have announced that today. And I believe you said that a couple of minutes ago as well. So
yeah,
I think there's 2 or 3 other guys that are going to come out and emerge as candidates for sure. But I'm very happy that Blake Baker is one who's kind of been leaked at this point in time. I'll throw that out there and say that's That could be the move.
It could be the move. What's being lost in all of this is that, maybe we're not talking, maybe it's just the talk of the town because, the defense has been so bad. He's still got to hire an offensive coordinator.
Yeah. And to me, it's not necessarily being swept under the rug to me because I know everybody's going to sit back and talk about Joe Sloan. Is he going to go in-house and do what he needs to do with Joe Sloan? And I think you and I would probably be on the same page if, he sat back and made that hire. Because I believe in what Joe Sloan brings to the table. I think he's a fantastic recruiter. And at the end of the day, he's going to be a guy who gets opportunity elsewhere if you don't elevate him now. Next season, we could be sitting back and talking about him getting an offensive coordinator job elsewhere. So, look, if they decided to do that move, again, I think it would be one that intrigues me a lot.
Well, I think the reason that it's not a big talking point is because they beat Wisconsin and they scored 35 points and Garrett Nussmeier threw for 395 yards. Like, if they would have been more subpar, if they would have just been average, everybody would like, hey, man, do we need to think about, rehiring, somebody else besides Joe Sloan? And to the point, Cortez Hankton, too, because I don't think you make them co-OCs, if you're not going to try to keep them both as co-OCs on title. But, look, Alabama's got a wide receiver coaching opening. There's some things going around with that. Let's see if, do they target a guy like Cortez Hankton or not? We'll see. But he's got a lot of turnover here on the staff. You know what he doesn't have a lot of turnover on, though? The players. I mean, so, yes, you have Jane Daniels, okay? You have Malik and Brian Thomas. But you're still returning a crap load of dudes that were on this team a year ago. Your thoughts just kind of on this dynamic of having to replace so many coaches when a lot of the same guys that you'll be playing with, I mean, look, they're not adding a lot of dudes from the portal. A lot of dudes will be back here potentially.
I think you're entering a crucial, third year of the Brian Kelly era. Obviously, I wouldn't say this is a make or break year by any means because you're replacing such large number of the staff, but kind of hitting on what you're saying specifically. Look, you're retaining a lot of key pieces to this team. Certainly losing Lance Hurd is a want, not necessarily a need. You have a lot of talent coming in on the offensive line, and you have a ton of players returning already. So, I'm not sweating the Lance Hurd move at this moment in time. 2025 is when I'm going to sit back and be like, damn, I wish he was here. But look, you're returning a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. I'm intrigued to see what Mason Smith ends up doing. I think it could be, beneficial news for LSU fans. But look, you're going to go out and you're going to go make your hires, and you're going to go get, like you said, it's a complete overhaul of your coaching staff. But the talent that you're returning is so significant that it doesn't necessarily worry me to a significant degree.
Thoughts on the position coaches on defense? Let's start with corners. Obviously, Corey Raymond's been a big name around here. A lot of people, chattering about Corey Raymond. Your thoughts on what they could do at corner?
Yeah, look, if you bring in Corey Raymond, we know that he's an elite recruiter. He's fantastic at what he does. Sure, Brian Kelly didn't retain him and whatnot, and it wasn't the best, situation over at Florida. But at the end of the day, if you bring him here, he has significant recruiting ties. He's a fantastic guy on the trail, and you add him to the juggernaut staff that you have right now with Joe Sloan, Frank Wilson. You're assembling an all-star recruiting staff. So I would support the move to bring Corey Raymond back. I know a lot of people might not, but I think coming back, a fresh start back here again wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Do you think that there's question marks around Corey Raymond?
Certainly. Certainly. It didn't produce his last year on staff. You and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And that's why I sit back and I obviously say I support the move. I don't want to contradict myself and say I don't support the move.
I know what you're trying to say.
There's recruiting benefits to this, and there's also some improvement that needs to be made on field from a player development perspective. So it's a win-lose. There's other things that need to happen here. But look, the last year of his tenure in Baton Rouge wasn't impressive. There's a reason why he wasn't retained. So there are some things that are going to need to work out immediately with him on the staff if they go that direction.
Safeties.
I'm not sure where they go in that direction. Mm-hmm. I'm really not sure where they go in that direction. Do you get one coach and just make it a defensive backs coach, or do you go out and make two separate hires?
I think he makes two separate hires because he's had it for the last 15 years. He's had a corners coach and a safeties coach. I mean, it just only makes sense to get to continue to do what he's doing.
Right. Agreed.
So that's just what I think. I do think TJ Rushing makes some sense from A&M, but I don't know there. I'm with you. If all the position groups that I haven't really heard anything definitive, it's certainly at safety.
It's
Now,
at safety.
yeah, I mean, watch that be the first hire that they make.
Watch.
But I do think that there's going to be some aspect of, let's say if it's Blake Baker, is there a part where he wants his own DB's coach? Is there a part that he would want his own safeties coach? Is there a point that maybe he wants his own defensive line coach? Okay, I know that John Jancic and Bob Diaco were not fired. But I do tell you, I mean, you got another move along the defensive line that I feel like you got to move because you fired Jimmy Lindsey today. And the reason I brought up Jimmy Lindsey is because we never really got to know him and Bo Davis's name. So let's talk about the elephant in the room on the defensive line. Everybody's talking about Bo Davis, but my question becomes, if you were going to hire Bo Davis, why didn't you go after him when you hired Jimmy Lindsey?
Completely agreed on that. And I guess my thing with Jimmy Lindsey is I would have liked to have seen him fall back to an analyst role. I'm not sure I would have liked to see him get, kicked to the curb immediately. But that's what happened. It is what it is. I think there were some recruiting benefits that you could have had if you kept him on staff. He was slowly getting into a groove, flipped a couple of guys. But I think that defensive line coach is just about done. I think they have a very good understanding of who they're bringing in. I don't think you would see somebody like Dominic McKinley commit in a situation where there is no coach on board. I don't think he would do that because he's such a relationship-based guy. There was a reason why Syracuse got to come back in-house. There's a reason why he had so many schools come into his home and visit with his brother, visit with his mom, come down south, come check things out. Whether it was Oklahoma, Texas, A&M, LSU, Syracuse, he's a relationship-based guy, and there's a reason why he wanted some more face time with these coaches. So all in all, I would assume that this defensive line coach is just about a done deal, or else you wouldn't have seen, select players, Dominic McKinley, commit at this point in time.
Bo Davis ain't going home with him. That could be. You could read that as a really good thing. You could also read that as a really bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, look, coaching hires are fun. They're always interesting. They're always highly entertaining. We got over 1,200 people in this chat, but we'll see. One final question I'll leave you out here with. Harlem Berry just committed. And Bryce Underwood just committed. I mean, not just committed. Not Bryce Underwood is going to be committing on January the 6th. Any thoughts on what LSU has done in the last week or what they could do in the last week in recruiting, potentially getting 3 5-star talented dudes?
Yeah, this is the heater that a lot of LSU fans have been waiting for. Me personally, obviously today getting Harlem Berry just adds to an embarrassment of riches at the running back position for the long haul. It's a monster get, and Frank Wilson rarely swings and misses on recruits in Louisiana, let alone at the running back position. So
in New Orleans,
yeah. So he went back. He went to where his roots are. Got Harlem Berry, and it's a done deal. And that's one. I had the chance to talk to Harlem Berry yesterday, both on a podcast and off the record as well. And he's a fantastic kid. And this is one that he was extremely excited to just get done, end the deal, and move on from here. And he's going to enroll early in January. He's already taking his classes. He's going to be done in December and on campus in January. It's done. I wouldn't envision anything happening unless some, coaching staff changes or anything like that. But even then, I still think he's locked in. And then fast forward to Saturday, man. That Bryce Underwood news, it's about as big as it gets. It's a program-changing week if you look at – if you ask me. Bryce Underwood's a program-changing player. Harlem Berry's a program-changing player. Dominic McKinley's a guy who has tremendous upside. I still think there are some hurdles that need to be jumped for him to get to that point. But at the end of the day, this 2025 class is shaping up to be what everybody imagined it would be. And that's, a program-changing class. You're potentially going to have a trio of 5-stars committed, and it's January of 2024.
I'm going to have to go listen to the podcast you're on with my kids. I'm going to definitely go listen to that. But let me ask you while I have you here. Is there anything bigger than he said that when you talked to Harlem Berry yesterday that you liked? Like, is there one big thing that you walked away from with him saying something?
It's kind of a casual take, in my opinion. He said a lot, but to me, he was kind of talking about advancing his game in a couple of different ways, and that's really becoming a receiving threat as well. He's obviously fantastic catching the ball out of the backfield and turning it upfield. The competition that he plays can kind of raise red flags. It's not the best division in the state. He's not playing the best talent on a routine basis. But for me, if he could kind of advance his game and be even more dynamic than he already is, and that's catching the ball over the middle and being more of a receiving threat as well, that is really something that sticks out to me. And he played a little bit of defense last year as well. So look, when he's locked in and completely focused on becoming a running back, he wants to get his weight up to 195. He's at around 175, 180 right now. So he wants his college playing weight to be at 195. And once he gets there and he completely, puts his pieces together, this is a scary, scary player. So that caught my eye the most, is things that he's looking to progress in before his senior season, and especially hitting the weight room to reach that 195, slot.
Zack Nagy, that's why you're one of the best in the business, man. Sports Illustrated, LSU Country. Tell everybody what you got going on, where they can find you, just in case. I know it's Z Nagy right there, Z Nagy 20, but things you might be working on before you head out of here, brother.
Yeah, look, man, it's all recruiting based stuff right now. Obviously, that Bryce Underwood news is the talk of the town right now. Saturday is going to be hopefully a fantastic day for LSU fans. You go 3 for 3 over roughly a 6-7 day span. So we got a lot of stuff pumping out on LSU Country. We got NFL draft stuff. We got recruiting stuff, basketball stuff, women's basketball. You name it. If it's purple and gold, LSU Country's covering it. And you can check us out, LSU Country on Twitter, LSU Country on Sports Illustrated on Google. And, of course, you can go to my handle right here, ZNaggy20 on my personal Twitter, and, pumping out as much as we can. So busy time of the year, but we're chugging along.
Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you, man.